Almost every account of hidden motors in cycling begins in the same place. 1998. A Hungarian engineer. A prototype motor concealed inside a bicycle frame, sold to a buyer he has never named, for $2 million, with an agreement to say nothing about it for 10 years. It is the origin story of the entire subject. It is repeated in documentaries, in newspapers, in comment sections, and it is very often repeated as established history. It is not established history. It is one man's account of his own life, and the useful thing to do with it is to separate the parts he has demonstrated from the parts he has only ever asserted, because the line between them is sharper than you might expect, and it runs right through the middle of the story. The engineer is István Varshas. You will also see him called Stefano, particularly in Italian coverage, which has caused a certain amount of confusion over the years. American reporting and the public patent registers both use István. It is the same person. Here is what he says happened. He says that at the end of 1998, he built a concealed motor that fitted inside the seat tube of a racing bicycle. He says he sold a single prototype. He says he was paid $2 million for it. And he says the payment came with a condition attached. For 10 years, he was not to discuss the technology, develop it further, or sell it to anybody else. He has never named the buyer. His account is that a friend acted as an intermediary with a party he did not know. That absence is permanent, and it is not a small one, because it means the single most consequential element of the story, who wanted a concealed motor in 1998, and what they intended to do with it, has no name attached to it and never has. There is a wrinkle in that account worth flagging, because it is his own words that create it. Speaking to an Irish radio program, he described the sale more simply, saying that in 1998 he sold one prototype to his friend and got big money for it. Whether the friend was the purchaser or the go-between is not consistent across his tellings. He has also said the development work cost him something over $80,000. It is worth pausing on why the date he gives carries so much weight, because it is the load-bearing element of the whole story. The commercially available concealed motor, the one you could order from a catalog, has a patent priority date in 2006 and was on open sale by 2009. The governing body's magnetic scanning program did not begin until 2016. If his account is accurate, a working concealed motor existed roughly 8 years before the commercial product and 18 years before anybody was systematically looking for one. And the 10-year silence he describes would have run from 1998 to 2008, which is to say, it would have expired almost exactly when the retail product appeared. That is a tidy fit. It is worth noticing that it is tidy, in both directions. It is the kind of alignment that makes a claim look credible, and it is also the kind of alignment that a person constructing a story after the fact would arrive at naturally, because the public dates are there for anybody to read. Now, what has actually been demonstrated? A considerable amount, and this is the part skeptics tend to skip. In January of 2017, the American program 60 Minutes broadcast a report by the correspondent Bill Whitaker, in which Varshas showed his hardware working. Not diagrams, not a description, modified bicycles filmed in operation. Whitaker's own assessment, on the record, was blunt. He said he had not believed it before he saw it or heard it, and that he was totally convinced. Two of the things filmed are worth describing precisely, because they establish what the technology can actually do. The first is a wheel-based system with small magnets concealed inside the rim of the rear wheel rather than a motor inside the frame. That is a fundamentally different architecture from a seat tube unit, and it matters because it puts the working parts somewhere a frame scan is not looking. Reporting on that system puts its weight penalty at approximately 800 grams. The second is the activation method, and it is the detail that tends to unsettle people most. He demonstrated a system synchronized to a heart rate monitor. The rider sets a threshold. When their heart rate crosses it, the motor engages by itself. There is no button to press, no switch to be caught operating, and no moment on camera where a hand moves somewhere it should not. Think about what an automatic trigger defeats. A great deal of the informal suspicion in this sport has always been observational. People watching footage frame by frame, looking for a hand moving oddly on the bars, a thumb resting somewhere it should not, an acceleration that arrives too cleanly. Every one of those tells assumes a rider operating a control. A system that engages itself when a physiological threshold is crossed removes the gesture entirely. There is nothing to spot, because there is nothing done. So the machines are real. They exist, they work, and a national broadcaster filmed them running. The history is a different matter entirely. The $2 million payment, the 10-year silence, the anonymous buyer, the 1998 date, none of that has ever been independently corroborated. It rests on his testimony. He did present a bank record to 60 Minutes. That is worth stating carefully, because the distinction is everything. He showed them a document. The program was not in a position to authenticate it, and did not claim to have done so. Presented is not the same as verified, and any account that upgrades one into the other is adding something the reporting does not contain. And this is where the legal ground has to be firm. Vargas has never named a rider. His claims concern an unidentified buyer, and where teams are mentioned in coverage of his story, they are unnamed. Nothing in his account establishes that any professional cyclist has ever used one of his devices, and to this day, not a single professional road rider has ever been caught with a hidden motor of any kind. Which brings us to the last piece, and it is one that most retellings of this story get exactly backwards. It is often said that the man who claims to have invented the concealed bicycle motor holds no patent on it, and that the silence deal explains why. That is a satisfying detail. It is also wrong. Istvan Vargas is a named inventor on an international patent application, filed in February of 2015 and published in August of 2016, assigned to a company called Typhoon Bikes. Its subject is a motor power unit that mounts inside the frame tube of a bicycle, and in the document's own language, remains externally invisible. So the record is stranger than either the believers or the skeptics usually allow. The man whose entire origin story is that he was paid a fortune to keep a concealed motor quiet went on, 17 years later, to file a public document explaining how to build one and put his name on it. If you want this subject handled through what can be shown, rather than what is claimed, subscribe to the Peloton Files. Here is the honest summary, and it is not the tidy version. The hardware is demonstrable. It has been filmed working, more than once, by people with no reason to help him. The architecture he describes is real engineering, and one version of it deliberately puts the mechanism outside the frame, where the sport's primary scan is weakest. The history is a claim, a single source, uncorroborated, self-reported claim, supported by a document that was shown to journalists rather than verified by them, about a transaction with a person who has never been identified. Both of those statements are true at once. That is uncomfortable, and it is the actual state of the evidence. The man at the origin of cycling's longest-running suspicion has proved that the machine can be built. He has never proved the story he tells about building it.